Welcome to B2B No Bull.
That's right, no double speaker gibberish, no talking heads. This is a safe place to talk about what you as professionals in the space can do to look like heroes to your bosses, make sales very happy, bring success to the organization, and that bottom line. Let's get started.
I have known our guest for quite some time. He is just a rock star at what he does. And our guest today is customer experience and e-commerce pro, Justin Racine.
Welcome to B2B No Bull, Justin.
Yeah, I like your studio you guys have there.
It's pretty sweet.
It is nice. You're going to have to be on that couch next time.
Very cozy, yes. It's velvet. It's hard not to just sit here and go like this.
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot.
Justin, we are here and thrilled to have you with us. And let's talk a little bit about your experience here. One of the reasons that we're asking you to be on this podcast today to talk about the very hot marketing topic in B2B circles of reaching these Millinnium buyers is you've got the history, the resume, the chops, if you will, all across digital user experience, digital marketing. So tell us about your role and how you've evolved and what you do at Perficient, if you would.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, thank you all for having me on. It's exciting to be here, and I think this is a great lens into the world of digital commerce and customer experience, things that I'm super passionate about talking about and working with clients on. So thank you for having me. My role at Perficient, I think, kind of started I'd say probably back 20 years ago when I started working at a golf course in high school because my parents said if I wanted to have a car and drive places, I needed money. And working at that golf course, I learned a whole bunch about customer experience and really, what consumers in general look for and what they want and different personas and behaviors and actions and kind of have the foundation from there that allowed me to work in the world of digital commerce and understand consumers and buyer behavior. And a lot of my schooling was rooted in consumer psychology and a lot of the behaviors and really what drives people to make decisions and why things like cognitive dissonance are what advertisers use to try to create opportunities for folks to buy. I kind of worked in the medical product space for 10 years, working with different brands trying to understand what patients and consumers wanted and through healthcare and products and how to create moments of interaction that are empathetic but also useful to that consumer. And that's evolved into where I'm at Perficient now. And my role is to really oversee our commerce strategy group, where we work with different clients and different brands, whether it's on the B2B side or on the B2C side, to truly understand what their consumers and customers want at their core, and then find ways to leverage digital technologies and solutions to build experiences that surprise and delight consumers, but also drive revenue for our clients. So I'm really heavily focused in on ensuring that whatever we're building with purpose, and we're building it in a way that is empathetic to our clients, customers, and their needs and what they're looking for, and building path to convert that just aligns to who consumers are. And that really is what drives people to come back for repeat purchases. So.
If I could set the stage for just a sec, because this is not our first rodeo, you and I talking about this topic. So very quickly, I've got old news, new news, good news, and bad news. The old news is that during the COVID and the pandemic, there was a sea change from who was driving purchasing at these B2B organizations. It went from folks like me to millennials and frankly millennial teams. That's the old news. The new news is these guys are not happy. I've seen some studies, I've done some studies where 70% of all B2B buyers that are driven by millennials are not happy with the experience they get on a B2B website, and they want something done about that. So the bad news is a lot of B2B sellers out there, and it's hard to generalize, but I think I will anyway, they have gotten the memo, but they have not gotten off their behind, let's say, to embrace what this new generation of B2B buyer wants. And the good news is that those who crack the code, those who give these guys the user experience they want, they're going to reap the lion's share of a $2.6 trillion market in B2B spending. So that is quite the topic, I think, to kind of jump off part for my colleagues, Mary and my sister Elizabeth here to kind of talk about.
Yeah,
for the
how
next,
about if I add a question into all of that? Because that was fascinating. So obviously this younger corporate buyer wants it all. They want a smooth omni-channel experience. They want great offerings. Where does a brand start to deliver on that? That's quite a list of demands.
Yeah, well, I love Mark's take there too. I always like the good news. The good news is that brands have the ability to start today. I mean, they have the existing set of customers and consumers and B2B buyers, so they already have a set of folks that they can start talking to, and they can look at all the behaviors that these customers have done, hopefully by demographical breakdown. And that's where really everyone should start, is the data that you have around your customers. Yes, a B2B buyer likely buys under account number. They probably purchase through POs. They may not order with credit cards. But have you captured other demographical information around that buyer? Do you know what age group that they're in? Do you know what previous products they've purchased? Do you know what channel they shop in? Do they shop online or through the app or through customer service? All of those things need to be grounded. If you don't know what age group your buyers are in, what demographic they're in, what affinity groups and what their interests are, then you're not going to be able to personalize for them, and you're not going to be able to have conversations with them. So the way that a B2B brand should start is starting to collect that data, start to understand the average age of a person if they can, and start to pull all that information in. Because while a lot of B2B buyers want similar things, each business-to-business brand is unique and different. There's different pricing formulas, there's different ordering workflows, there's different order approvals, collaborative buying environments. All these things come into play. So you have to first start with understanding who the customer is that you have, and digging pretty deep in on, do you have all the demographical data needed to truly understand what their needs are, what they care about? And if you don't, start to collect that. That's step one.
I absolutely agree. It's sometimes difficult to get B2B marketers to want to do additional research to make sure they've got all of that nailed down. And then the other part of that equation is the buyer's journey. They're very much focused on where somebody is in the sales cycle and how to match messaging and channels to where those customers are, even though 70% of that we can't see anymore. So can you speak a little bit to the buyer's journey and how we marry the data and the buyer's journey for B2B marketers?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is really understanding each B2B use case. So if you look at the world of medical products, for example, or medical devices, a world I came from, a lot of organizations are going to buy vinyl gloves or buy hand sanitizer on a week in, week out basis. That doesn't necessarily need a lot of high touch from a salesperson or a lot of personalization. It's really just, rinse and repeat orders. Now, in the future world, can a personal shopping assistant agnostically order that for someone without them having to log into the website and just click, I need 3 boxes of vinyl gloves? Yeah, absolutely. And they should be doing that. Where you can marry up the customer journey, though, is when you pull in all the different touch points and the behavioralistic elements that customer is telling you about what they're interested in. As an example, let's say that a hospital needs to order 50 new hospital beds. They might mention that to their sales rep on a call, and the sales rep, says, hey, Joe, do you need anything else? Yeah, in 3 months or so, we're going to need to put out a bid for 50 hospital beds, which is hundreds of thousands of dollars. And Joe might say to that sales rep, hey, that's going to be coming up. That's going to be a focus for us. Oh, okay, interesting. Thanks for telling me. That sales rep should then take that information and enter it into the CRM that they have. And in the world of connected, unified commerce, that CRM should now guide future experiences when Joe authenticates on that B2B portal to start showing him banners on hospital beds. That's the capital purchase that he's about to make that's going to take 3 months. And oh, by the way, emails that he gets should have similar product content as well, too. And all of his behaviors that he has on that site, on that portal, should be going back to the sales rep so he can see what products he's looking at, what brand he might have an affinity towards. And then that sales rep can help guide them on the journey that person has in an omni-channel way. Maybe he calls them up, maybe he emails them. Every piece of behavioral information that Joe is doing as that consumer should be tracked and curated in a way to align him on the right path that he wants to be on and the right products he needs, and do so in an omni-channel fashion. that's the ideal like future vision for B2B that I think a lot of organizations are starting to see, and they're starting to at least drive towards that.
So that's the ideal, right? But let's talk a little bit about what folks are doing wrong right now, especially for our listeners, right? What might they be doing wrong that they don't realize that they're doing wrong? And what could they do to correct that, or at least get ready to be better at it?
Yeah, I think data is a big piece of it. Truly understanding who customers are at the core, and really their behavioralistic tendencies as well too. I think a lot of B2B organizations don't dig in super deep on consumer behavior. They're focused in on other elements. Also, I think a lot of B2B organizations have UX elements or experience design elements and ordering workflows that are legacy and they're not updated and fresh. Some of the sites that are out there can look like they were built in like the 90s or the 2000s, and a lot of innovation hasn't come from that. So I think ensuring that they can start to keep elements and components refreshed within the site is a big piece as well too. And also, I think a lot of B2B organizations don't necessarily embrace AI maybe the way that they could be and experiment using things like live chat agents or personal shopping agents, and even more so, trying to enter in the world of personalization. A lot of upsell, cross-sells within B2B digital commerce experiences don't have any algorithmic sort of tendency behind it. It's simply a marketer thinks that this is a good product to cross-sell, so we're going to put it in the featured product section, versus actually leveraging data that's coming in to understand affinity products that make the most sense. I'd say those are the biggest areas I see people not spending as much time on, but a lot of the clients I've worked with recently are really looking at focusing in there, and also really focusing in a lot on the direct-to-consumer path. That's a huge area that B2B organizations over the last 12 or 18 months, I've seen a massive push and shift of saying, hey, we have products that we know direct, folks want. Let's start to open our catalog up and figure out how we can get them to order.
So talk about that a little bit, right? Because there's pros and cons. And we've been in a million conversations with B2B folks who want to go out into the B2C world. What is your experience there? What are the pros of it for a traditional B2B company?
Well, the pros is that you have new revenue streams coming in direct with consumers, and in theory, you can cut out distribution folks in the middle. And I won't say cut out, I'll say go direct, which in theory could be much higher profitability for the organization. The challenge with that is that the core group of customers that you've built your business on will feel threatened, and they'll say, well, what do you mean you're selling direct to my customer? That's my customer, that's not yours. So that's a challenge. And how can you do that effectively? Well, there's a couple of different ways. One, you can only offer certain products direct to consumer. Maybe it's new products you're launching, maybe you're testing them out and you want to see what they do in the market. So new product innovations could go direct to consumer before it goes to your broader audience.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, and test and learn is definitely speaking our language. I think most marketers who are listening to this are chomping at the bit to do a lot of the things you were just mentioning. And there are inherent challenges. You mentioned kind of the siloed of maybe not sharing data the way it needs to be shared, and the ability to get to hyper-personalization to go in and sell those hospital beds. So can you tell us a little bit about how to break down those silos?
Yeah, I think, the best way that I've seen breaking down silos is really just like cross-company communication internally. You need to have customer service and sales on the same page. Like, hey, this is a new initiative for us. Here's how you can message to the current customers we have. Like, hey, you're still our customer. We're just testing products out in the space. These are new items that we want to see how they do. And that's going to help us improve the product development life cycle so that when we give it to you, Mr. or Mrs. Distributor, we know what the right price point is for MSRP or MAP pricing that you can recommend to your customer. So that's one way of being transparent and breaking silos down. Another way is that you can go direct to consumer if your pricing strategy is in line and lockstep as well too. If I sell something to a distributor for $10 a case, then maybe I sell it to the end user consumer at $15 a case, right? So you can ensure that your pricing strategy, you're not undercutting your distribution partners or your retail partners, that if someone wants to buy it direct, they can, but it's going to be at a higher price. What I will say, though, is that if you follow like the historical mindset of big retail brands of where they're at today, like Nike as an example, Nike used to sell through retail, and now there's Nike stores every corner, and now there's a Nike website that you can buy directly. Can you still buy Nike and Finish Line or, you know, these other stores, Foot Locker? Yeah, absolutely. They have Nike shoes, they have Nike socks. You can buy products in there. But Nike was a behemoth that was a big snowball rolling down a hill, and guess what? It's only going to get more momentum, and you're not going to stop it. So there's a point that comes where the manufacturer, this is more on the manufacturing side, not as much on the distribution side, but the manufacturer says, okay, our end user customers are telling us they want to have conversations directly with our brand. We got to give them that. That's what the consumers want. Is there still life for retailers or distributors in the middle? Yeah, probably, because people are still going to go to stores, or they're still going to have loyalty points with Finish Line or Foot Locker that they want to use. There's enough market share to spread around. But those first initial steps are going to be really challenging, and you have to be very careful and make sure that the timing is correct before you jump in to the deep end on direct to consumer, because the customers you've built your business on, they keep the lights on for you. And if you go direct too soon, or you pick the wrong products, or they feel threatened, your competitor is going to get those customers. So it has to be done very delicately.
I don't think I spend all my day talking to manufacturers and distributors on the B2B side. And the user experience is top of mind, has been the last 18 months. And the millennial buyer is not a solo individual, it's a team. That team is 3.5 to 7 members, and they are cross-functional with the organization. And guess what? These guys use 3, 5, 7, or 11 channels depending upon who you're talking to. So my point is, the expectations of these millennial buyers are deep. They know what they want. And one of the things they want, by the way, is self-service and remote. And there's a lot to kind of break down there, especially when you're talking this so-called omni-channel, which is a very overused term. Here's my question, which is, you're talking about data. And these buyers that are millennial buyers, they know what they want. They know how to get it. Price point is not their biggest thing. It might be the complexity of the transaction further down the funnel. My core question to you is, why are B2B sellers not giving these millennial buyers the experience they want? Because frankly, in a lot of cases, they are not.
Yeah, I think they aren't, because they don't realize maybe the buying power or the buying persuasion that millennial buyers want. And you made a really good point, Mark, that, you know, price maybe isn't king. It's experience. And I'm a millennial. I'm on the later millennial side, but I fall within that group. And it's true. I mean, if you look at the millennial generation and even Gen Zs and younger generations, it's the instant gratification. You can go on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, and you could sit there all day and swipe through and look at videos and then digest content in an instant. And we have grown up in a culture where we all grew up with computers, and we grew up with, you know, the World Wide Web and the internet and all of these things. So we inherently kind of learned all of this ourselves, and we can learn how to order through a buying portal ourselves if it's intuitive and made easy. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the biggest piece. I recently wrote an article in CMS Wire about this, which is something that has been in the world for a while. It's called experience economics. Consumers will spend more on an experience than they will on a cup of coffee. We complain about egg price and coffee prices, but why don't we ever complain when we want to take our family to a trip to Europe or Disney World that costs thousands of dollars? In fact, we're happy to shell the money out. Why is that? What's the psychology behind that? The psychology is that we as consumers like experiences. So if you're a B2B organization and you want to create stickiness with customers and you don't want them to leave, price is important, sure. But if you create an experience that makes it easy for them to do the things that they want to do, as an example, personal shopping agent that agnostically, is a AI agentic agent that will place an order for you. You don't have to log in and do it. It just sends you a text and you reply with like, yes, looks good. That makes it easy. Those are the types of things B2B organizations need to be looking at to introduce like those micro experience economic moments, right? What are the small things that what are the small things that a B2B organization can do that make it easy for millennials to shop and buy, and Gen Zs, so that they're not spending their entire day doing that. They can focus in on the other big tasks that they have. Because most B2B buyers, it's not their sole job, right? It's part of it, and it can be a big time suck.
I also think that some of the things that the B2B buyer is looking for are ways to help them take information to their executive team or to their leadership or even just their boss. And are there ways that they can take some of the things that you've just told us about and make it an important step that their organization has to take? How do they sell that in?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we try to focus on at Perficient and just in general is showing the ROI of it, right? So like if you want to leverage, like, hey, we're going to use an AI personal shopping agent to place orders, that's going to save me 5 hours or 10 hours a week that I'm going to be able to focus in on these other things that Mr. and Mrs. Boss told me is a priority. And oh, by the way, like placing an order through that AI agent is also going to help us purchase smartly. So we're not overstocking our stock shelves and we're buying products that are in stock. Like, hey, you typically order these vinyl gloves, but unfortunately they're on allocation this week. If you place your order, you're not going to have them in time. However, I found another replacement product that is similar. It's slightly more expensive, but you'll have vinyl gloves this week. Would you like to purchase it? Yeah, absolutely I would. So showing the value of what additional tools can do is going to be huge. Also, additionally, being able to create collaborative working environments. I mean, B2B portals shouldn't be just a order-taking engine. It should be a place where different stakeholders within that B2B organization can come in and digest different pieces of content. Maybe I'm one level of a B2B buyer and I want to share, a new product that was released and a content sell sheet on that directly with my boss. I should be able to email it or send it directly right out of that B2B buying portal. And I should be notified when they read it. All of these different interactions can be baked in so that, that traditional B2B portal isn't used for just ordering. It's used for collaboration and conversation. That's the future. That's where B2B organizations can create stickiness and loyalty among the buyers that they have.
What about the trust factor, though? Because if you look at the hierarchy of where buyers on the B2B side want, trust is number 2 or number 3. Yet we're talking about the millennial buying team at a B2B organization that is not as trustful, and they're quick to jump ship if they don't find anything they like. And these guys are very focused on what they want. So I think it's a catch-22. So my core question to you is, how do you build, as a B2B selling organization, if you will, the trust factor with that millennial buying team out there who has very set demands and you're not meeting them?
Yeah, 3 simple letters, CAB. Customer Advisory Board. Make your biggest detractors or biggest, customers that are struggling into advocates. Pull them into the organization. Talk through the product roadmap of what you're looking to develop and build in new enhancements within that buying portal and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, what do you think about this? What problems do you have? We as millennials, we love to create and be creative, right? We like new things. Make them part of the process. Pick out some core key customers that are vitally important to your business and bring them into the fold of what you're looking to build. Hey, what new features would you like? What features don't you like? How could we make this experience better? If you pull them in and make them part of the process, you'll build trust with them, but you'll also allow them to feel like they're actually building something, which they are, and they're providing input. And once you've done that, you have a customer for life. In fact, you'll have way more suggestions than you have time to build or implement, but that's good. That's what you want. You want your customers engaged on more than just buying, but actually being involved in the digital commerce experience, because commerce is a living, breathing thing. It's an entity. It's an idea. It's a progressional, forward-moving, living, breathing thing that's constantly evolving, and it should have input from customers going forward, and it should always be changing. And if you can do that and pull them in, I think you'll get their trust, and I think you'll end up building a better product overall.
I love the whole idea of a customer advisory board. I think that that's a really key takeaway from this conversation today for B2B companies especially. I think sometimes they are so busy just trying to churn stuff out that they're not paying attention. They're not making it personal enough for the people who are buying their products. So that's a huge tip, all you listeners out there. Set up a customer advisory board now. Are there any final questions we have here for Justin before we have to roll off?
Yeah, I have a quick one. You've spent a lot of time talking about the psychology behind the buyer. And B2B marketing not just has to keep this, younger corporate buyer in mind. We also have to keep the decision makers in mind. We have to message to them. We have to message to influencers. I mean, there's like a whole team, there. Now, are we going to erode trust from our buyer if we talk to their CEO or talk to their CMO? Is that part of the psychology?
Yeah, it absolutely is. I mean, you want to have, tentacles and different touch points throughout the entire hierarchy of the organization. And it's different for different people. Like a director of e-commerce, director of marketing, director of digital strategy should be talking with the buyers. They should be talking with purchasing associates or purchasing directors, or, understanding really what they want and they need and their desires. Whereas, executives like CEOs or CTOs of manufacturers and distributors should have that, executive line, sponsorship from the, executives on the other side of the table. So, how can you ensure that regardless of who you're talking to within that organization, if a B2B buyer is coming, obviously they care about what's on the site, but their boss's boss cares about other things. So having this kind of aligns to what the salespeople within that B2B organization should be doing too, but having a top down and bottom up alignment of the account and doing internal account reviews of like, okay, who is the executive that's our sponsor, and how do we have conversations at that C level, and who are the folks in the weeds? What do they care about? And the goal is that each one of those personas at the customer cares about different things, but the B2B organization should be appealing to what each of them cares about individualistically, but ties up to a higher, bigger goal, so that when the customer, get in a board meeting, all of the needs are met regardless of what side of the table that they're on. Mm-hmm. In a big way that I write a lot about that's on the consumer side, that's starting to make its way to the B2B side, is this idea of anthropomorphism, where we as consumers assign human-like characteristics to non-human entities. A good example is like our pets. We talk to our dogs, we talk to our cats, we ask if they want to go for a walk. They're not human, they can't respond, but we assign human-like characteristics to them. My dog Jack, he's happy today, he's sad today. Maybe he's a dog. But brands and B2B organizations have the opportunity to anthropomorphize with their customers.
Is that kind of like supercalifragilisticexpialidocious kind of thing? Okay.
Kind of, yeah, right. Exactly. I think it's the precursor. But truly, a B2B organization, you're starting to see more B2B organizations go out to Instagram, go out to TikTok, and create fun accounts in there. Why? Because they know that millennials are up and coming, and they know that they're on there, and they know that they would engage with their content. And if the content is, an humanistic content, and it's anthropomorphism to the degree where like, hey, this is a fun B2B organization. They're kind of cheeky. They make buying easy, but they always have like funny Instagram or TikTok, content coming out. That appeals to that millennial buyer, and they start to see this organization not just as someone they buy from for their job, but they see it as with human-like characteristics. The organization becomes funny or becomes humorous or becomes cheeky.
That's because the buyer is human, for God's sake. Exactly. And people forget that all the time. If you can make them laugh, don't be afraid of that. Be relatable, but be authentic to the brand. We all know those rules. But yes. I think a lot of times in B2B, you forget that and I've said it before and I'll say it again, it's human beings talking to human beings. And if you can achieve that from your brand and your brand voice, then you're in great shape with B2B.
100%. You hit the nail on the head. That's it. That's the secret sauce that B2B organizations, if they can tap into, you'll have customers for life. You'll have generational customers for life, 100%.
Well, Justin, we think you are a superhuman. You're such a rock star. We have enjoyed this conversation so much. You've given all of us, including all of our listeners, some great examples and great tips to take back and try to implement in their organizations. So I just want to thank you for all of this. It was really inspiring.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And while we're thanking people, I'm just going to take a second and thank our sponsors. I'd like to thank the Motion Agency. They are a premier B2B marketing communications firm, and they are ranked number 8 in the U.S. We love them and love their support. And then also I'd like to thank Embas. Embas is a marketing consultancy that specializes in content creation, business strategy, and marketing communications. And we're thrilled to have them on board helping us keep this going.
So, hey, until next time, you can watch these episodes or listen to them on a variety of platforms. That's right, iHeartRadio, on YouTube. You'll find us. It's B2B No Bull. Our website is B2B No Bull, and that's the numeral 2. And yes, we are kind of using an acronym there, but you'll have to forgive us. But visit our website anytime to access these podcasts. And again, thanks so much to Justin, and thanks to our listeners out there. Hope you guys have a great day.
Thanks, Justin.